Hello, it's good to see you all. I think there will be others coming in and they are on their way, but welcome to our special offering, Growth Spurts, and special welcome to our guest, Wendy Dolin. I will tell you more about her in a moment, but thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us last week for our first presentation with La Casa Norte. And I hear that a number of you have followed up with donations and offers to help, and thank you for that. Our guest today is a very dear friend who I have known for quite some time now. And Wendy came into my life because she was recommended through a mutual friend to learn meditation. And so Wendy came in to learn meditation. She was already a psychotherapist who was practicing as a psychotherapist, and she came to learn meditation. But in the course of teaching her how to meditate, we became very close because I found that the two of us shared something that I didn't share with many people, especially not in this neighborhood. And that was our mutual fear of driving on expressways. And to my delight, there was here another person who shared the same fear of driving on expressways. But unlike me, Wendy was way ahead, as she always has been. She was actually confronting her fear of driving on expressways. And in fact, she did overcome that fear over time. But more about about Wendy and her inspiring presence in my life in a moment. Let me first share with you her bio, because I want to start in a very formal way and share her bio with you, and then we will go from there. So about Wendy, here is what I would like to tell you about her. So Wendy Dolin is a certified family therapist with a private practice in the Chicago area and an internationally recognized health and safety advocate. She is also the founder of the Medication-Induced Suicide Prevention and Education Foundation in memory of Stuart Dolin. Wendy started MIST following the 2010 death of her husband, Stuart, who died after suffering from an adverse drug effect called Achathesia. MIST educates the public about Achathesia in a wide variety of ways and is proud to be involved with advocacy groups. In 2018, the International Society of Ethical Psychiatry and Psychology recognized Wendy Dolin with its Humanitarian of the Year award. So that is about our guest today, Wendy. And Wendy, it gives me great joy, and what an honor it is for me to say I knew you before all of this happened, and thank you for joining us on our presentation today.
It's my absolute pleasure to be here for so many different reasons. I'm touched deeply by this honor, so thank you.
So Wendy, I want to, of course, share your journey with everyone, but I want to also start from the time I knew you, right? I knew you before, as the expression goes, what hit the fan, right? And you came to meet me because you had become a psychotherapist and you were trying to integrate meditation into your own practice to teach your customers, clients, and at that time, did you have any idea of this mission of a lifetime that was waiting at the door for you?
No, not at all, except that I'd always been interested in philanthropy. And when Stuart was alive, and it's still ongoing, we started a colon cancer research fund at the University of Michigan. And I remember the March before Stuart died, and I was saying, this is really taken off. I need something else. And Stuart said to me, something's going to come to you. I just know it. So going backwards on that, who would have known that? But I think that I've always been interested in social welfare. So never imagined this, obviously, but knew myself well enough that, giving back was something that was important to me.
Yeah. Now, when I met you, I remember the conversations that we were having at that time, or before all of this started, was at that time, the big thing was that you had gone back to school to become a psychotherapist, right? There was your life as a wife and a mother, and then I think in your 40s you
Right.
started to you went back and you became. So tell us about that. What made you go back to school and become a psychotherapist?
Growing up, I'm 68, graduating in, high school in 1969 before I went to college. And I'd been with Stuart since he was 15 and I was 16. There was just sort of, I think, this understanding that I'd become a teacher so I could support him while he was in law school and then have children. And even though I enjoyed teaching, social work was always something that was in the back of my mind. But at that time, I didn't imagine being a new mom and going back to grad school. But it was always something that I wanted to do. And so when my youngest was a junior at high school, I said, you know what? It's time. And I went back at 48 years old.
But now looking back, I mean, when I see your life and I see those different steps, I see how that was such an important piece of what happened later. But
Exactly.
you had at that point of time no idea that the reason or the bigger picture of going to study psychotherapy and becoming a psychotherapist and the journey that followed. So, and then here you have, you start trying to start off your career as a psychotherapist and, trying to build that up. And that was where we all were when life took a big turn on that fateful day in 2010. So, what can you tell us about that day?
Well, that is Joan Didion wrote in the first opening of one of her books, "Life changes fast. Life changes in an instant," and that's what happened on July 15th. So very briefly, we were living, this wonderful life. We had been together for 42 years, two successful children, fully launched. Stuart was doing great in his career. I was doing great in mine. We were able to be empty nesters and enjoy ourselves. And I'd say probably in early June of 2010, Stuart was experiencing just some situational anxiety at work. He was a pretty high powered attorney at a very large law firm in Chicago. And he decided, in addition to other things he was doing, he would take Paxil. So he got from his doctor Paxil, and almost from the time he took it, 6 days before he died, he started having, I call it the crescendo, where there were symptoms that were building and building and building till finally the night before he died, he was sitting at the dinner table tapping his leg and saying, I don't get it, when I still feel so anxious. And he was what I call a good consumer of, of mental health. He said, I'm going to listen to, it was actually one of your meditation tapes, Rama. And then he said, I'm going to exercise. And he did. And he got up and he felt better and then had lunch, a regular lunch with an accountant, and, ate a healthy lunch and made plans for the following week, and then goes back to his office and gets up from his desk and walks to a train he would never take, and ended his life by jumping in front of a train. And so obviously this was an enormous shock to everybody. If 1,000 people were going to end their life, he would be 1,001. And I know they say when someone suicides, do you ever really know their true personality? But this was not a mystery. And so it was a stunning shock. And for me, besides the absolute shock of it all, it was very, very public. He had stopped a train in the city of Chicago. And for someone who was so private, my whole life was then exposed.
I remember those weeks and months that followed. When did you realize it was a drug induced episode?
It's really a fascinating thing. I mean, you and I've talked in our work together how much I love coincidences, but are they really? Like, your viewers don't know this, but two people simultaneously had recommended me to you, and I love the fact that it came from two different ways. So I'm walking my dog about a month after Stuart died, and my girlfriend Joanne calls me and says, Achathesia. And I'm like, what? And so I get home and I didn't know how to pronounce it or spell it. And, I'd been in grad school and, been pretty serious, did the extra credit reading, and I'd never heard of it. And I go into the house and I Google Paxil, suicide, and akathisia. And all of a sudden, this wealth of information came out there, which was that it's a known drug side effect and they hide it and it's deadly. And in fact, one of the articles I read by a Harvard psychiatrist, Dr. Peter Breggin, said GSK hid Paxil-induced suicide. At the same time, I didn't know that Joanne had been talking to a dear friends of our son, Aaron, who was a pharmaceutical lawyer, had worked against Big Pharma. They start talking, and unbeknownst to me, they went through the intake process of a law firm. And when my friend Joanne went through the intake process, the intake coordinator had said to her, akathisia. And at that time, what I found out was that akathisia is this drug side effect that can lead to violence, self-harm, and suicide. In fact, a doctor who knew about akathisia said, it's not so much you want to end your life, you want to end the reaction. And it's such a terrible reaction that the quote is, death can be a welcome result. And going backwards in time, all the things like there's physical, outward symptoms and inner. And Stuart was exhibiting the pacing, the cognitive confusion, the disorientation, those kind of internal things. And it breaks my heart to think that some of the internal symptoms have been described as your brain feels your brain feels like it's on fire, bugs are crawling on you, your mouth feels like it's sucking on a battery. And then there's, the external symptoms. So when I heard about this and that they knew about this, I'm like, this just cannot exist. I mean, how do you go on with your life knowing that I'm not dramatic, but he was murdered by the drug company? Because if you hide things, that's involuntary manslaughter. And it became my mission to then raise awareness of akathisia.
Yeah, I know that you took on Big Pharma, and I want to talk about that. But before that, I think let's show our people here from. I'm going to your website, and I know that you have some video there about akathisia, which I'd like to share. So just give me a moment while we do that. Is that okay? If we
Yeah,
do
I
it?
mean, one of the things that we do as part of MIST is education and, fun, and prevention. And so we've come up with these very powerful videos that I think as of this morning, the two of them have 225,000 viewers.
Wow.
And then one is, what is akathisia and what does one akathisia look like? And we're now going to be making one that is, it's similar format, but it's what people who lost loved ones to akathisia, what it looked like to them. And they're very short, but this will give you some information. So thanks.
Yeah, I absolutely. Would you like to, before I do that, would you like to tell us about how that moment when your friend called you and said it's akathisia, and then you went home and you looked it up and you understood it, and then it led to creating of MIST, your not-for-profit?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about it is, we got so many of us didn't know what to do with ourselves, and we wanted to make a difference. And when I got our board together, one of my board members said, look, if this is the drug side effect that killed Stuart, this is what we should be addressing. But let's face it, you raise money for breast cancer or all these other organizations, but you're raising money for medication-induced suicide. I think people really thought that I lost my mind. But then I couldn't turn back. How do you get information where there's this deadly side effect that probably affects about 10% of people who take many classes of medication? And what do? Just say, oh, well, so long, I'm going to go on with my life. I just couldn't do that. So that's why I started MIST.
Yeah. What a powerful mission. What a powerful mission. Let's look at this video, and then I will find, just a minute. Let's go to, wait a minute.
Every day, people around the world are prescribed medication. However, when starting, stopping, or changing dosages, especially those for mental health conditions, there can be unexpected side effects.
I couldn't sit still. I was pacing up and down. I was crying.
My mouth felt like I was sucking on a battery.
I felt like I had worms crawling under every inch of my skin.
Side effects that steadily grow more severe until they become unbearable.
I attacked myself with a knife and was hallucinating.
I knew that if I didn't die from it, I would kill myself.
It felt like I was being burned alive.
I wanted to die.
It's called akathisia, an intense inner restlessness brought on as a side effect of medication. As many as 5% of patients taking certain medications suffer from akathisia, and for them, the feeling of being unable to stop moving becomes torture. Death can be a welcome result. Unfortunately, many patients and their doctors don't know enough about akathisia. Help us spread the word about akathisia. By learning more about this disorder, we hope to empower those suffering and their loved ones to take action before it's too late. If you or anyone you know is showing signs of akathisia, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. For more information about akathisia, visit our website at mist.co.
There you go. Yes. Your courage and determination to move forward with your mission in the face of, because I know I was there with you in those times, just heartbreaking grief is just something that, I mean, I've always told you this, Wendy. You've been such an inspiration to kind of channel all that thing into a purpose. You are a true warrior.
Thank you.
You truly are a warrior. Now, in the midst of all this, you took on Big Pharma. Tell us about that journey with your groundbreaking lawsuit.
Well, first of all, I want to say to those of you who are watching, I owe so much to you because you had said something to me really early on. I don't know if you remember this. And you said about starting an organization for a cause. And I remember you saying to me, put that in one box, but also put your healing in another box, because too many people focus on the organization and don't work on healing. And I really, there was such wonderful advice for me because it meant so much that I could take time, meditate, heal myself, but yet do this thing. So thank you. That was a powerful, powerful message.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you about this, and I think you've been a part of this for a very long time. So when it became, when I figured out that the drug company, in this case, GlaxoSmithKline, GSK, knew about it, and my friends were trying to get me to talk to these lawyers and take the lawsuit, and I kept meditating to Stuart, like, tell me what to do. And Roman, we just talked about this, that I kept saying, you know, Stuart, show me a sign, and I'm about to meet with you. I'm walking my dog, and a green balloon falls from the sky and lands right in front of me. And of course, you could take the thing that I lived in Newport Township. It's a green balloon, but landed there. And then I went to you, and you said to me, it's a sign. And that Monday, my lawyers called me and said they decided to take the case. So there's many parts of meditation and my relationship with you and spirituality that mean something. But anyway, yes, taking on big pharma, it was probably one of the more difficult decisions in my life because I wasn't delusional. I mean, you don't do this and not expect to be attacked and prodded and probed. And I think at the end of the day, they wanted to send a message to me or any other person that if you go after us, we are going to rip your soul apart. And it was heartbreaking because to my friends, my children, it was a big decision. And I don't know necessarily a popular one, because again, it was very public. And what made the lawsuit groundbreaking was that, and this is just a very brief consumer issue, most of Americans take generics. They're
Yes.
forced to take generics, but if Stuart was on the generic version of Paxil, and in our country, you can't sue the generic company because they say, well, we didn't make the formula. And the main patent company says, well, it's no longer a formula. Well, our brilliant Judge Zagel, who sent our governor, Rod Blagojevich, to jail many, many years ago, said, wait a minute, this isn't about who did the labor. What this is product liability, that if you lie about your product, you have to be held accountable. So this became the first case in the United States where someone was on a generic and sued the primary, manufacturer. And it was awful. And I think they felt there was nothing on Stuart. They couldn't find anything on Stuart. There was nothing about our relationship. So they just were trying to throw in every possible thing. I mean, normal lawsuits have 7 depositions. They had 40. They just wanted to send me a message and I won. And what was really unbelievable about that is a jury saw the actual drug data and saw that they lied and hid things. And so I won the lawsuit. And unfortunately, it was overturned in the upper court, not because they thought Stuart ended his life on purpose. The lower court, blamed GSK, the upper court blamed the FDA. But either way, it brought Achathesia out there. And as the result of this lawsuit, I got featured in the New York Times and NBC5 Investigates and Law 360. And through all of this, Mist and Achathesia was out there. Millions of people started to hear about it. So even though I lost money, I won.
Definitely.
I feel.
Yeah. And when I look at you and I think of winning at so many different levels, because I remember in the first few weeks and months of this tragedy, all you could think of was that everyone would know about you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And now, 10 years later, you are like, who cares? Who knows?
Exactly. I mean, I'm beyond that.
Asked, and even when I asked you to participate, I was like, I don't know what she's going to say. And you said, yeah, I'll do it. And I was thinking, whoa, we've come a long way. I mean, that's really, what I always talk about in my classes and my conversations with people is that adversity is the journey that moves us from ego to soul.
And I think for you, the many discussions, I mean, what was such an honor to be here today is you were so much part of healing and helping me in my thoughts. But I remember because I was just mortified that people knew. I remember living on the North Shore, and I walked into a restaurant 2 weeks after Stuart died, and I'm with my best friend, and I go, is everyone looking at me? And she never lies. She goes, yeah, basically. And so that was the kind of thing and I felt terrible that I was going to always have a tagline.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the woman whose husband killed himself. And it bothered me that Stuart, who had this remarkable life, I didn't want the last chapter to be the only chapter.
Right.
And so when you said to me, because you and I talked about being raised from the outside looking in and how does it look? And so this was, I think, the first journey from the inside out, that this is, you need to stand in your power, own your power, and really just not care anymore. I mean, it went from being so paranoid. I remember after he died, closing the blinds in my house so that it was such paranoid behavior to now, I speak all over the world.
Really? Because, you said that, people are asking you, oh, you want to start something about medically induced suicide prevention. You want to actually start a not-for-profit for that. And you said, as you said a little while ago, you said, I can't stop now.
Yeah.
There's something that needs to be birthed. Ready or not, even if my ego is not willing, my soul is too big.
Exactly.
And so tell me, in that journey, what was tell us a very difficult experience that you had and how you overcame it.
I think I don't know that you ever overcome it. I mean, one of the things about grief, and I do a lot of grief work, obviously, with my clients, is that it doesn't go away. It gets better. There's always that part that's missing. But what becomes inspiring is truly making a difference in the world. So, MIST spends a lot of resources on public education. And so, you know a lot of this. We have these 2 videos and a third one. We've had train signs on platforms in New York and in train cars in Chicago. And we just recently launched a San Francisco bus campaign near the Golden Gate Bridge, where big bus wraparounds that say, what is Achathesia?
Wow.
And we go to conferences, and like even on our website for there, if you're a social worker or a mental health care professional, there's a continuing education course where you get a 1-hour credit. We're now doing something like this for doctors, but we go all over the world, literally. But I think it's all gratifying to me when you get these letters from Shared at MIST from all over the world, which is, thank you for doing what you're doing. But I think for me, the big moment, there's a couple of big moments. Obviously, when I won the humanitarian award, that was just remarkable. But I think a year ago summer, I was asked to speak at the Royal College of Psychiatrists, and I didn't know what the heck I was walking into. And walking up on the stage in a room the size of an auditorium and being up there, I get goosebumps when I even say it now, just really made me realize they took notice. They knew of my work. And I've done a lot of work with the military, because that's a whole other show, but that is, they are killing themselves at record rates. And there's now been a connection between overprescribing and medication. So I speak to veterans, which is, different. We've gone to Virginia, DC. So the idea is wherever the opportunity takes us, we go. And I'd like to believe we've saved lives. I know we've saved lives, or at least made people aware. I think the other thing that's important is that for me, the message has expanded. And when Stuart first died, we were primarily focused on the SSRIs and antipsychotics and those kind of meds. But then we realized that this was a bigger issue than we even knew about. And it was happening on, Tamiflu. It was happening with malaria drugs. It happens with Accutane. Some of the antiemetics that people take for nausea during chemotherapy, that these drugs give people suicidal thoughts. So the mission expanded. And that was basically when you stop, start, or change the dosage of any medication. If you start to either feel worsening symptoms or there's new symptoms that were never there before, you need to be aware that it might not be you, it's the medication, and you need to call a doctor or 911. And then the other thing that I do is we've been working a lot with suicide prevention hotlines so that we can start getting our message out there. Medication-induced suicide is never going to be the main reason people end their lives. The vast majority of it, maybe 90%, is people who have mental health issues or they have a situation that's unbearable. But so we address about that 10%, but the 10% of the hundreds of millions of people who take medication, it's worth discussing. And I think if we're going to have an honest conversation about suicide awareness, this needs to be included or it's not complete. So these have been some of the rewarding things to see this expansive global message.
Yeah, I know there's another video on your website. Let me try see if I can pull that one up and share that one so we could look at it. 1 second. Where is it?
Yeah, the one, what does Achathesia look like?
Yeah, what is Achathesia? And yeah, what is the first? Yeah, this is
This
the
one is what does Achathesia look like is the second one.
yeah, I think we saw the second one first.
Oh, you saw the first one first. You did
Yeah, no,
go in right order.
We talked about what is Achathesia, and now I'm going to.
Achathesia.
That's it. That's the one.
That's the one?
That's the second one. Yeah, so that's the one you haven't seen yet.
Yes, that's the one we haven't seen yet. Hang on.
Brought on as a side effect of medication. As many as 5% of patients taking some medications can suffer from symptoms so severe that it sometimes drives them to violence,
self-harm, and suicide. Akathisia typically occurs when a medication is started, stopped, or changed in dosage or type. It is during these changes that it's critical for others to watch for symptoms of akathisia. But as a first responder, medical professional, family member, or friend, how can you identify symptoms of akathisia in a patient or loved one? Visible symptoms to watch out for include rocking back and forth, pacing, marching in place, inability to be still, shifting weight, unusual or violent behavior. Less visible symptoms can include an increase in insomnia, anxiety and agitation, irritability, impulsivity, aggressiveness, hostility, and panic attacks. The following videos were recorded by people suffering from akathisia.
I sleep 1 hour in 24 hours for the last week.
I just want this to stop. This is what it looks like for me a lot of the time. This hurts. It hurts. It hurts.
If the situation is urgent, call emergency personnel or go to the nearest emergency room for help. By recognizing the symptoms at the onset of akathisia, those suffering can be helped before it's too late.
Wow, that's so disturbing. I feel like, do they teach this? And you have you since tried to get this as part of the curriculum for therapy or therapy schools?
We're trying to do that. In fact, at the MIST was asked to write a chapter on akathisia for a professor in Florida, a book where we were asked to write a chapter on it. I mean, the thing that's interesting about this second video was, as you grow, first we wanted people to know what it is, but then when I started speaking to first responders, they wanted to see what it looked like. And one of the things that was also an education for me is, Stuart, there's 4 types of akathisia: chronic, tardive, acute, and acute, chronic, tardive, and withdrawal akathisia, sorry. And Stuart's was a quick onset. But what we came to learn, which is even more tragic, is that sometimes it just doesn't go away. Like these are 2 real people who have struggled with akathisia their whole life, and it's just this continuous inability to sit still.
Yeah, I'm just thinking every single person should be made aware of this, because it's so easy for people to recommend medication, but without telling them that this could be the side effect, we are really not giving them the tools that they really need to get through this. So I'm so glad you're doing this. Now, a quick question to you: do you meditate? How has that helped you?
Well, before you go on, I just wanted to say to you that in regards to akathisia, I just want to make it clear that MIST is not anti-drug at all. We're just a full transparency. And the reason that we spend so much time and resources educating healthcare professionals is that what came out in Stewart's lawsuit is, talk about ignorance. I thought the FDA did all the drug trials. No. Drug companies submit their drug trials to the FDA, and basically the FDA approves it. And then whatever the drug company tells them, the FDA does. And so I saw the Dear Doctor letter that Stewart's prescribing physician received, where it said that Paxil was practically the next best thing to sliced white bread and decrease the rate of suicide, only that they lied and there was an 800% risk of suicide. So people are like, why don't what about doctors? I feel that they are left out in the dark in the same way we are. So we're not anti-drug, we're just pro-information. But getting back to meditation, I mean, I think meditation for me was just in this crazy time I was in. It was a moment where I could just be. And for those of you who meditate, you know what that means. And of course, I got really frustrated in the beginning, like, how come my mind is still going other places? And then I said, you know what? If for whatever amount of time I can sit and think, it just helped me, and it helped me feel connected to Stuart. I think I felt through meditation a connection with him, and I just kept having all of these connections with him. And I think that the meditation just was so calming and balancing for me that I can't stress enough how important it was. Probably the best thing I did for myself. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so wanting to pause with that thought that you felt more connected to Stuart when you were meditating, because that's what we do say about meditation, that it takes you out from this realm of just feeling that you are this person and this is your body and this is your mind, to going to that place where we are all connected at some level with one another. And that's why meditation gives us insights and intuitive messages that come from that mysterious place. So that's very helpful. So thank you for sharing that. Wendy, now I want to ask you, what would here you have our community. I know that there are some people on this call, but I know that a lot of people are waiting to watch the video. So there will be more people watching us and our conversation. How can we support you? What would you like from us?
That's a great question. I mean, basically speaking, as a safe patient advocacy group, all we ask is that, well, first of all, if any of the viewers or the people who will potentially be watching this are associated with any organization, this is my third presentation this week. I mean, our goal is we never turn down anything. We want to be, get our message out. And so that's one thing. We always say to people, if you like what you heard today, please go to miss.co and either post on Facebook or watch the videos and share that. I mean, it's all about information. That's what's critical. I always say to people that even if you're not a social worker, take the 1-hour course online. It's free, and you learn all about akathisia. And I think it's just what you can do to support me is spread the word, because that's what this is about. It's about, something. I kind of think about this with like when babies were born as a result of thalidomide, and they were deformed, I think during the 50s and then there was this campaign that kind of went out to talk about it. But until people started talking about it and sharing about it, you didn't know. So that's our goal, plain and simple, to be I mean, obviously, if people want to go to miss.co and donate, of course, that's lovely too, but that's not why I'm here today. It's more about getting the message out and sharing it, and that's the best thing you can do for me. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Is there any other lesson, any big aha moment that happened during this course of these 10 years that you feel really changed who you are at a deep level?
I think that for me, it's interesting. My mother started an organization with her sister during the 50s. It's a terribly politically incorrect word now, but it was the Chicago School for Retarded Children that was on California near Peterson. I believe it's now the Annexter Center. And my mother and her sister and a group of friends started this school through fundraising because they saw that one of their relatives had a child with Down syndrome and there was no place to go. And so my mother saw a need with her friends and started this organization. And so I think what all this has taught me is that if you see an injustice, we can't, right every wrong, but if it's within your power, I think it's incumbent of us to make a difference in the world. I think that's, that is something that it's for me, it's been impactful over the past 10 years to really see the need. And, and what's interesting is the incredible people I've met all over the world as part of this journey, and people who share my story, unfortunately. And so I think that what I've learned about this is the power of making a difference, the power of seeing something and doing something about it.
And I know, Wendy, from our conversations together, that you get letters from all over the world from people who come across your website and who share either their similar experiences and tragedies with you, or say thank you for for that. Would you like to tell us some of that?
Well, actually, we received, it's something called Shared at Mist, where people can write their stories in, and we got one today, and that was about a woman who lives in Chicago and actually heard my broadcast last night that I did, and she had actually seen the train car ads and but basically inside the subway cars, there's the Achathesia logo. What is Achathesia, and be aware.
Okay.
And apparently she must have been a lawyer, because she said she read about Stewart's case in the Chicago Law Review or whatever many years ago, and basically shared her journey regarding Achathesia and everything. And then the end was, thank you so much for what you do. This makes so much sense, and I need to spread the word. And these come in maybe 4 times a week.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's really fantastic.
And you know what they say? They say that for everyone who does right, there are so many who don't.
Correct. And I think for people too, I think the other thing that's been part of this journey is just the idea of suicide. People don't want to talk about it. It's so many people that I've met along on this journey and who didn't have a medication-induced suicide, just had a loved one who unfortunately ended their life. The idea of the shame and the judgments. And I think that was probably something that I struggled with in the beginning. Like, I'm sure people were wondering, like, oh, were they really this nice couple? Did they have some hidden secrets? And people, someone said to me, when did your life become a democracy that everyone gets to vote on it? It was sort of an interesting experience. But I think the idea that we need to be talking about mental health, we need to be talking about suicide. And there's a wonderful other organization that I've been involved with. Her name is Miriam Ament, and she started No Shame on You and talks about mental health issues. She's remarkable what she's achieved. And I think that what we've done is literally opened up the floodgates for people.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Wendy. Now, for those of you who are on this call, if there's anyone who'd like to ask a question, put it in the chat. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Wendy, go ahead and, I think there are few enough of us that we can actually, thank you, Julie. Anyhow, if you have any question, you can just turn on your video and turn on your sound, and you can even ask Wendy directly yourself.
Hi, my name is Gail Canning. Thank you so much, Wendy, for that presentation. And I do plan to listen to the 1 hour. I am a therapist in Evanston, and I certainly have heard this concern that was never named akathisia, but when a client is placed on a medication, the parents are often told to watch carefully for exactly what you're describing, akathisia. Nobody ever used that term before, though, before you. In my experience. The question I have is, if the person stops the medication, do the symptoms disappear, or are they still left? They're left with the akathisia even if the medication is stopped?
That's a wonderful, important question. Actually, withdrawal akathisia has been getting a lot of attention. People think, oh, I'm not liking my med. I don't like a side effect. I'll stop. You can develop akathisic symptoms when you stop too soon. So my advice to anybody is anytime you go off a med, you need to taper with the guidance of a healthcare professional. I just spoke a couple months ago to Hazelton, and one of the issues why it's become an issue in the alcoholic world is that so many people stop drinking and they start drinking, or they stop a med. There's a lot, and there's been an increase in suicide of those people. But that's a great question that people need to know, that you never stop cold turkey. Always taper. Always taper.
Great. Thank you for your answer. Thank you for your presentation too.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. So Prabha has this question. She says, is there a difference between general anxiety disorder and akathisia, and how do we distinguish this?
That's also a great question. I mean, generalized anxiety disorder, people obviously experience, anxiety and stress, but this becomes like anxiety on crack. It becomes this almost like you're constantly, the anxiety is so intense that the pacing and the rocking back and forth, it's like you don't know how to discharge this anxiety. It's like a continuum. There's a difference between depression and ending your life by suicide. Lots of people have generalized anxiety disorder. In fact, the vast majority of people come to therapy because they've had a lot of anxiety in different parts of their life, but it's the degree. And that's how you tell the difference, when people are just unable to sit still and they, are pacing, and they just are starting to have thoughts that they might not have had before. And I think that has to be the benchmark. It's the intensity of it.
Got it. Got it. Okay, is that it, folks? Thank you, Wendy. As always, I'm whenever I'm in your presence, I feel like a real gratitude for the opportunity to know you, to be a part of your journey. And I thank you for coming today and sharing your story with us. I hope that many people watch our conversation today and it inspires a growth spurt in them. This is our, what I like to say, our karma to dharma journey. And such an inspiration.
And a special shout out to Jenna Sackman, who's on the call, who's the wonderful director of MIST and keeps us grounded on a daily basis.
Yes, thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Jenna, for that. Yeah, thanks, Wendy. Thank you all for joining, and I hope to see you all again. We will be continuing with our growth spurts. Next week, we will be having a couple of ladies who are also on their karma to dharma journeys and doing great things in our community. See you again next week. Have a good week, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Rama.
Thank you for letting me turn on sound.
Oh, she couldn't get her sound on. There's
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you for the shout out. This was so powerful. Always love being a part of this and hearing Wendy speak.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Wendy, I don't want to miss the messages that are here. Julie Concannon says, thank you, Wendy. I learned so much today, such valuable information. Prabha, of course, thanked you for it. Pat has said, thank you so much. This has been enlightening. And yes, and Jane Passon says, thank you. You are so brave, and thank you for your candor and honesty. Your journey and your work is amazing.
Oh, namaste to all.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.